This is the absolute worst that AI will ever be. Sorry, this might be a little grim. I do think most white collar jobs are going away. We had one church say that it replaced like 20 hours of paid work for them.
Wow. AI, artificial intelligence. Is it a tool we should use? Is it a golden calf? Is it the Antichrist? These are questions that a lot of people are asking, but especially ministry leaders. That's a topic we got into today with Paul, who's the founder of Post Sunday. And they take sermons and their AI chops them up and turns them into social media clips. This is a great episode. I'm Mike Sudik. This is Faith in Tech. Paul, welcome to the Faith in Tech podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Mike.
So excited to have you here. So you are founder of Post Sunday, which is a AI startup that basically you drop a sermon into your tool and then it just throws out a whole bunch of content. And I know I probably butchered that explanation, so why don't you give me the pitch?
No, you're really close. So we can take a sermon, we transcribe everything, we pull out the heart of the message, and then we start to create social media clips out of it. So we have a whole video editor. Our AI will suggest like, hey, here's 5 or 6 clips you can use. We get some images, email recap. It's kind of like a church communication person, right? Like a lot of the tasks that they have throughout the week, discussion questions for small groups, all that stuff we create with AI, all from your sermon. So
that's amazing.
Everything is like looking through the same biblical lens that your sermon is. And yeah, it's a really powerful tool. It takes about 30 minutes or so to turn a sermon into a bunch of content like that.
Wow. Why are you so excited about this idea and this company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'm a PK. So I grew up in the church space. I saw firsthand all the behind the scenes work that goes into like this church. Right?
All the behind scenes as a PK. I don't know. Are we going to get into all that?
Oh man, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah.
But like I saw all this stuff that was happening. So we were also doing a lot of work with Nike, and continuously we were seeing the highest ROI like on ad spend, on engagement, on social channels. So I kind of had that in the back of my mind. And then looking at a bunch of local churches, I'm going, if you compare like a local church to say like a local plumber, obviously different audience, but churches typically have like a 4 to 5 times more people following them on say Facebook compared to people that show up in person.
Yeah.
So you have these weird, this weird situation where churches have this massive opportunity and most churches just don't do anything with it.
Yeah.
So as I was kind of like digging into that, I'm going like, why is that? Well, typically it's social media for a church is like one task on someone's list, but they're wearing 10 different hats.
Yeah.
But again, like we see the power of it, like in like the local plumber or local small business, like would kill for the numbers that churches have on follow counts.
Yeah.
So as we started to build more and more AI tools, we went, hey, I think there's something here that could actually equip churches to do ministry more efficiently, a bit faster, and great outreach tool.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, yeah, because and you're dealing with someone with an organization that's doesn't have the capacity. They don't have a marketing team. They don't have a marketing budget sometimes, right? Maybe they have like one person that's doing that. So you have an untapped potential with low capacity to actually act on it.
Exactly. So like we'll have churches where the pastor is bivocational, he's the only person on staff. And then we even have mega churches where they're looking at this and going, we do have the team to do it, but using Post Sunday takes us 10 minutes instead of, we had one church say that it replaced like 20 hours of paid work for them.
Wow. Which goes back to being more efficient with the funds, right, that are given to them. You're like, hey, you don't have to spend it on that. You could be spending it on actually actively serving people, type of thing.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a lot of tedious things that we can just completely automate.
Yeah, that's great. So tell me about your road to getting to Post Sunday. So you didn't just wake up one day. You have Post Sunday as a culmination of some of your experiences. One of those is dropping out of college and then actually spending some time also in South Africa doing some ministry there. So tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I spent 6 or 7 months in South Africa, built a computer training program for people that literally had never touched a computer before. So the basic idea was we want to help people help themselves get out of poverty. So basic Office, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, skills. We first trained some teachers, then the teachers would go and train their students, and then we had it attached to a job finding service at the end of it. So basically like data entry jobs, and it was this really cool program that ended up running for like 10 or 11 years or so after I left.
Yeah.
But it really impacted how I view things. So the very first cohort that we ran with that, our graduation rate was really abysmal. It was maybe like 60% or so. So, and you know, I'm an 18-year-old kid. I'm very discouraged at this number because I'm going, man, if we could just have people show up, like we can, I'm confident it'll help change their life, right?
Yeah.
So we made a small tweak where we had people pay just a small amount. It was like the equivalent of like $5, but they had some skin in the game. We aligned incentives where like that money was going to the teachers. So instead of it just being this completely free thing, it's like, well, you got to pay just a little bit. But our graduation rate shot up to like 90% on our next cohort from that.
Wow.
And so that dramatically shifted how I viewed things. Because coming into it, I was going, everything has to be free. It has to be given away. And then after that experience, I'm like, you know, it might be a little bit more effective if people have some skin in the game.
Yeah. How did that shape like other decisions that are like even like your faith or something after like you have that experience, right? It's to me as a business person, I go to freemium model versus like a small paid. You know, you have like people don't value things that they're given for free in a business product setting, right? If you
Right.
give, as opposed to like if there is some level of like transaction where someone's exchanging money, then there's a seriousness that's taken towards it. But I'm
Yeah.
curious, like where the intersection was, like with your faith, you know, being a PK, you know, having your background and saying, okay, I have this thing that challenged my beliefs a little bit. Tell me about how that like transpired after that.
Yeah, I mean, like even as we're like evaluating like what we're kind of giving to, a big emphasis for me is like, if this program like stopped receiving money today, would it continue to run? Mm-hmm. And like, is there some like built-in stuff there? And not that everything has to like meet that criteria, but I would, and there's certainly some things that like wouldn't like ever, and like that's okay. But I do think a lot of organizations, especially nonprofits, could be close to self-sustain if with like a few small tweaks.
Yeah.
So that's a big thing for me. It also impacted how I, as crazy as it sounds, like evaluate like startup ideas.
Yeah.
So, you know, a lot of people listening to this podcast probably have, you know, 10 different ideas of, oh, I'd love to go and explore this. And as you're going and talking with friends or potential customers, everyone will tell you that your idea is great. Oh yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah.
Then you ask them, great, if you like it, like, can I get your credit card? That's
Yeah.
a very different conversation, and it parallels some of that early stuff where it's like, if it's completely free, no risk, like, oh yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah.
Everyone will say yes.
Yeah.
But hey, pay just a little bit, and there's like that filter, right?
Right.
Even if it's like $1 or $5 or whatever, like it's still enough of a barrier.
Right. Oh yeah, totally. Like it's like, okay, when you actually have skin in the game, you know, you have to make a decision. Yeah. So you also did you built a platform for valuation of like sports trading cards, right? Tell me a little bit about that venture. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't know we were going to get into to that in this podcast.
Had to have a gotcha moment.
Yeah. So, long story short, one of my buddies who's also a PK I've known for like 30 years, always been into sports cards, and he was like, "Hey, Paul, like I think there's something here." At the time, he was a pastor, and he's like, "I'd like to try to find a way to like supplement my income here a little bit because I'm taking like a very small amount from the church." He's like, "I've always been into sports cards." I was like, "All right, cool." So honestly, I was doing this more so as a favor to him initially. But I'm like, here's 10 grand. Show me what kind of stuff you would buy. And like, again, like I had some cards as a kid, but like I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah.
And so he kind of walked me through his process. And I'm like, there's something kind of jumped out to me with the math where you can have these raw cards. I'll give you the quick crash course for people that are not card people. Cards come in packs. They're not graded. You open them up and like, oh, seems like an interesting card.
Yeah.
And you can go and send it to a third-party service and gives it a grade, you know, like 6 through 10.
Yeah.
There's a huge delta between an ungraded card and a PSA 10, or like a card that gets a 10 or a 9. And so I'm looking at this going, I don't understand cards, but I understand math pretty well.
Right.
And at one point, like there's some cards that you should buy in bulk online, right? So we ended up buying something like 80 or 90% of all Wemby cards on eBay of a specific set. And then we would receive the cards, send them to PSA to get graded, knowing that we're going to lose money on about half of them. But then the half that get like a 9 or a 10 are going to carry and actually. So we ended up selling $1 million worth of cards.
Wow.
In like a year or two or something like that.
Wow,
So,
that's amazing.
yeah.
That's amazing. So then how did you feel? So that, what was the technology that kind of powered all of that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah.
Like, and is this still going? This is still an operating business?
Yeah, it is.
Right.
I actually just sold my stake in it to my buddy. So
Yeah.
I was looking to
So we're
get
going to cut all this out of the podcast.
it's okay. You can still keep it or whatever you want to do. It's fine. But no, like I'm on great terms with him and everything.
Yeah.
Just like I need some more cycles for some of the other things I'm pursuing.
Yeah. So, but you had a whole AI kind of algorithm behind it, or like a basic calculation.
Yeah. So we actually didn't even need AI for that. I did write an algorithm, and I built a little mobile app to help my buddy evaluate some deals quickly.
Yeah.
And then I also built a Chrome extension that helped him on some of the buying side as well.
That is cool.
So yeah,
That's
he
really
did that
neat.
as his full time job, and he's still doing that as his full time job. And then I'd just pop in, once every few months and make a few little tweaks to the math or whatever. But
Yeah.
yeah.
That's really cool. So tell me about, we chatted a little bit before the podcast on like kind of Christian, the tech space and VCs and PE, nefarious actors a little bit in some of those spaces. But tell me a little bit about just, your faith journey, since I would say like post like the spending the time in South Africa and then kind of coming out of that to like now building tech for churches. I think you had said earlier that you were saying, it fundamentally changed your outlook, but it also was like changed a little bit of your trajectory of like what you wanted to go into. Then you had a stint in Y Combinator or some of these other things. So can you speak to like, how that's transformed to lead you to a point now where you're actually building technology for churches that they're expanding their outreach with these tools,
Yeah. So I'm a PK. I saw kind of, behind the scenes a little bit in the some of the shenanigans, I guess, that kind of go on with a lot of churches as far as like things that they're trying to execute on. It's a lot of churches are understaffed, under-resourced, and even if they have some willing volunteers, there's still a lot that goes into like training and it's tough to get churches that are well equipped that can execute at a high level. And so I really had a heart to go, I see what is working in the secular world, like on a lot of our consulting stuff. And I see some unfair advantages that churches have where they have built-in content cadence of like every Sunday there's a message and people want to hear it. They care enough to break up their weekend and go to church and spend time in community and fellowship. So why aren't churches repurposing that? And I saw my dad prepare all week long for a message, and then when he was done preaching, like poof, it was gone. Maybe someone remembers it 2 or 3 days later, but there's opportunities to like really have that message like live on.
Yeah.
So that was where some of that came from for me.
Yeah. So you're saying like I can use these skills, this background that I have to say like something that's kind of untapped, if you will, like the church being like, hey, they're doing all this, but they're not getting the full ROI of the investments that they're putting into it. Yeah.
Yeah. And a lot of it too is like, it's something that they would, a lot of these churches would aspire to, but again, like not staffed or understaffed or just frankly like out of time.
Yeah. Where do you think the role of AI is being used in your tool? I think in a very positive way, but AI presents, I think, a lot of existential like issues, right, in society, but also like shaping a narrative. Like you talk about, I'm gonna poke a little bit here, but it's like, okay, if you have a sermon that goes into Post Sunday, and then you said it's going to spit out like an outline for small group questions. Like, So are you surrendering to the AI of like what you should talk about in there? Like,
Yeah.
like how do you answer that question? You know?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the way that we approached it, we're actually looking at we first transcribe the entire sermon and like try to capture like the heart of the message, and then everything that we generate is like looking through that lens. So we're kind of putting the onus like back on the pastor to say, hey, we're going to instead of us telling you like this is what the study guide should include, we're really trying to look at it through things that you've already told us in the sermon. And so I think there's some additional optimizations that you could do, like even from like a denomination perspective as well. Like maybe the Baptist church sermons get processed slightly different than like Wesleyan sermons or things like that. But for the most part, that's something that we're very aware of and are trying to like look through the lens of the sermon.
Yeah. Where do you see like, what are your views as a technologist with AI and like, I'm just curious. I'm totally taking a tangent here, but like, society writ large, or, how it affects like, just generalize, like, kind of like abstracting us from reality, but like relationships, that sort of thing. I see it as social media kind of was one degree of abstraction away from like genuine face-to-face relationships, right?
Yeah.
And then it's like now you'd have this like AI like filter, or even like potential AI like relationships. Like what are your, like, how do you think about that? Like, I'm just kind of curious. I know that's a total like wide open-ended question, but
yeah, I mean, I do think. Sorry, this might be a little grim. I do think most white collar jobs are going away. Like middle management jobs are going away. I think it'll be K-shaped, where like the top 20%, like if you think of people that are like managing teams right now, you have maybe 10 people that are like actually executing things day to day. Maybe 1% at the top is kind of orchestrating everything and doing it, but like they're almost like an aggregator, right?
Yeah.
I believe the future is going to look like that one person is going to be controlling different like AI agents. And then your direct reports are going to be like AI agents. We part of how we've been growing Post Sunday is like we built our own AI powered sales tool as well, and we ended up licensing that out to another company. And again, not to be too grim here. A part-time person running our sales tool was out-competing their team of 5 fully loaded salespeople that were like well like
compensated. Yeah. Wow.
And there's no reason like why that couldn't scale. Like we ultimately hit product offering limit from their side before we hit like not being able to scale the sales side on
what do you mean product offering limit? Sorry.
They were selling like a physical product.
Oh.
And so they had a limited like quantity.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You like stumbled in a whole nother business. You're like, okay, yeah, we're good here.
Yeah. So like, again, we're kind of like dog fooding that tool to grow Post Sunday as well. So
what's the downstream effect of that? That many jobs go away, like,
yeah.
to totally pivot a little bit away. But from a faith standpoint, I mean, that's, I think one of the ways that I kind of think about it is like, it seems inevitable that people would de facto kind of like worship an AI type model, right? If it's doing everything for them and it's a quote omniscient on, it knows all this, it seems inevitable that would be a conclusion for certain people, right? Like, I'm curious, like what your thoughts are on that. Like,
yeah, I mean, I've seen the headlines of like, oh, the AI, girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever, people being attached to it. I don't know. It's so crazy because like at the end of the day, it's math, right? It's linear algebra,
right?
Multiplication matrices and stuff. I think we're in for some wild times here. The next few years. So when I was at Y Combinator, Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was actually the YC president, and OpenAI actually came out of YC research. I think that was like 2015, but Sam was kind of in a dual role thing where he was the YC president when I was there too, and guy's just on a whole other plane.
Yeah. Did you get some insight from him on like, because that was like, you were there 2017,
Yep,
right?
yep.
So you said 2015 was like when they were getting founded.
That's when they started, and they actually did that as a hedge against. It was like a moonshot against just Google completely owning the space.
Yeah.
So Google, they had all the ingredients for this.
Right.
The transformer, right? The GPT, Chat GPT, the
Yeah.
T in there, the transformer. Like they invented all this stuff.
Yeah.
But then their safety team kind of like held stuff back. So at the time, the popular thought was Google's going to own AI, and you think of all the implications, like even of what you're saying, of like if ultimately it becomes this thing that's everywhere, that becomes almost like instead of you outsource some of your thinking to it, some of the implications there are pretty crazy.
Yeah.
If one company controls everything.
Because I would agree, and I think the data is what makes the model powerful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that way, if you have AI that you want to give you things or to serve you, to do a task for you, the more you surrender, air quotes, data to it and all of your information to it, the better it's going to do, right? So in that way, you're kind of de facto surrendering your data to this thing.
Sure. So
whether that's a single player or your own model or whatever it is,
Right. So you have the data layer, but then you also have, what is this trained on? Like what are the data biases that they're bringing to the table?
Yeah. The doctrine biases, right? I don't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can think of like a silly example of like, well, what's the best pizza place? And you imagine like Pizza Hut is like sneaking in there. They're paying some money to have their results be there. And I'm not sure if you've ever had other kinds of pizza, but I would not have Pizza Hut as like, the pinnacle of the pizza experience.
Yeah.
Or no, like pizza's bad for you entirely.
Yeah.
If one company controlled that, that's an insane amount of power.
Yeah. And do you think that AI so I think post Sunday, what you're doing with that, I think is a net positive, right? It's a multiplier. It's essentially it's a lever that you're using to expand the message, all of that for local church. I think that's great. But it's a tool at the end of the day, so that if you can't take a Luddite position, I don't think as like Christians and as people are trying to get that message out and say, we're only going to do handwritten letters or something. Like if you're taking it to extreme, right? And you're saying, hey, I don't know about this video thing. I don't know this internet thing. We're not going to do that. It's like, well, that's I don't know, that's the right path. Doesn't seem being a good steward. But AI seems to be a step change in that it's more than just a lever in some ways because of all those things that you're saying, right? So it almost begs another question. You've already gotten over the, hey, we're going to accept technology and these tools, but then there's like this weird step change that's not understood by a lot of people. I mean, I would say I don't have 100% grasp around how all of that works, right? I kind of know generally, but then you start to introduce these, like you were saying, Pizza Hut pays for, preference in the data model or whatever. So now you're putting, there's a little black box aspect to it that it has implications, right? Like, especially if you're talking about serving up, sermons or serving up or doing things that are related to church and to ministry, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think we've been able to avoid some of that initially because like the biggest feature, like the biggest reason why churches sign up for Post Sunday has been to create those like social media reels, right? The short little videos. And it's the way we're using AI there is to identify clips that we think would do well on social media that kind of reinforce the message. So it's not like we're generating new things. We're not putting words in your mouth. But you could imagine a world where, and again, like we're not doing this right now, but like you can imagine a world where someone like writes in with a prayer request and it's like, should they have an AI response? Like, hey, we got your, like we're praying for, like that feels like a little weird to me. But since we're able to just like serve up things that they've actually said, we're not putting any words in anyone's mouth or anything like that. we've been able to skate by that a little bit. But I do think there is some operating efficiency stuff there too. But I don't know where you necessarily draw that line, right? Because it can get messy really quick.
Right.
If it's just like a data entry task, it's like, yeah, of course, like that should be probably automated and doesn't need a human touch. But churches are obviously different than businesses where they're dealing with things that are regular business. When some of those personal relationships, those trying to bring people along that journey, right?
Yeah. No, I think it's an interesting question. I think it's something that church leaders have to grapple with a little bit, because the pursuit of scale can drive you to do things that maybe are a little bit like counter to what you want to do, right? Like I could imagine a pastor being like, technically it could be possible for a pastor or a missionary to be like, I'm going to take all of the recorded messages I have and all the content, put it in this model, and I'm going to create this digital version of myself. And like, oh, people can interact with this. It can like answer questions, that sort of thing.
Sure.
It can scale. It can get the word out more, right? And so if you take that kind of thought experiment, you're saying, well, that's risky, right? Because of the things you're saying. You're saying you were kind of outlining like there's like some data entry or like some of these creation of these YouTube videos or whatever is different than actual personal interaction relationships, right? So
yeah.
So I just think it's just interesting to think about those like questions that as the adoption of these tools and technologies kind of flow into all areas of business and stuff, but especially in ministry.
Yeah. There's this interesting thing too with AI in sermon prep, right? Because a lot of the pushback there is like, oh, AI shouldn't be writing these sermons.
Yeah.
Like I agree.
Yeah.
But there are ways of using AI with your sermon so your prep becomes faster, right? Like I'm blanking on the name of those books. Is it the Logos software that helps with sermon prep? You can find all these different references. It's like you can do that, but on steroids.
Yeah.
With AI, you can even have it. Hey, what was that? The study on Romans that we did last year. What were the key points that I hit on that?
Yeah.
And like you could have AI go back and look at all that stuff and know in a second. So as you're preparing your sermon for Romans this year, you can either reinforce or reference something or not touch that one. Oh, we already handled that. So like there are efficiency gains there too, but I don't think that it should be like, you're not going to chatgpt.com and typing in like, write me a sermon on Romans and then just going from it.
Yeah.
I think it's a tool that should replace some of the research side of it there.
Yeah.
Prep.
Which makes it, like you said, it's on steroids. It's like a commentary on steroids, or it's like a cross-reference on steroids, which I think is I think it's a good aim, because what came to mind when you were saying that was like, we've all listened to a sermon where someone, a pastor, like takes one sentence or a few words and that's all they take. And then they build a whole sermon that's like, has like no other scriptural references, like, but they took that like one sentence and build a whole story. You're like, wait a second, is this like, how are we getting back to like, is this actually like biblically sound?
Right.
So in the same way, that it's basically that on steroids. If you take the negative view of AI usage for like sermon prep, that sort of thing, right? I mean, that's how I think about it anyway. So it's not necessarily a new phenomenon. You just have to guide the use of these tools to be more, not guardrails, but ensure that you're doing, intelligent, steroids, if you will.
Yeah. And what's crazy is like, this is the absolute worst that AI will ever be, right? Like if you look at how quickly it's improving, it's an exponential curve.
Yeah.
So most people like have a hard time, and like exponential math is not very intuitive, right? But what that translates to is a graph that looks like this, right? Like very steep up and to the right.
Yeah.
And so if this is the worst AI is ever going to be, it's going to rapidly improve. Its capabilities are going to improve. Text generation, image generation, video generation, insight, memory, recall. It'll know you better. These are questions that we got to get figured out pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's going to be an ever evolving discussion, especially in faith communities. I think, you're definitely probably going to have the Luddite kind of holdouts that are like, absolutely no,
Yeah.
we're going to, which that's a story as old as time, right? Like,
yeah. One of my favorites, I'd reached out to a pastor like via email, and they responded with like, we don't believe in AI, and then Pastor so and so sent from my Galaxy, like S26, which like obviously has AI stuff built in, right?
Yeah.
Like you're using it, but just not in necessarily the way that you think you are. But
Yeah.
and even like behind the scenes, you open up Google Docs and there's Gemini integrations. Like there's you're using AI, and again it's linear algebra.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's already baked into a lot of these tools that we use, whether it's iPhones or in computers or apps or whatever. Especially algorithms like in social feeds and stuff.
Yeah.
That's essentially AI because it's serving you up what you want to see. But it's algorithms, but it's like, because it's forced to the forefront and there's so much unknown about some of these like next steps with it, it's almost perceived as brand new when it's like, no, it's already kind of been baked in a little bit. Whether that's okay or not, but you have to at least accept the fact that there's already adoption on some level, right?
Yeah.
Which is what you're saying.
Yeah. It's I don't think you can really realistically avoid it.
Yeah.
Crazy times.
Well, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate this conversation, Paul. So postsunday.com.
Postsunday.com.
That's where I can find what you're working on. And I think it's a great tool, and I think it's going to do a lot of good for churches to really amplify a lot of the things they're already doing really well. A lot of teaching they're already doing well. So thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a blast.
Yeah, see ya.